The world's largest PC manufacturer just made a decision that cannot be undone. Lenovo, the company that ships more laptops than any other on Earth, certified its entire ThinkPad and ThinkStation portfolio for Linux and began selling devices with Ubuntu pre-installed. No license negotiation required, no Windows default, no Microsoft involved, just hardware that works, running software that costs nothing. This is not a rumor. This is not a beta test. This is the official product line of the world's biggest PC maker, and it happened because the math finally stopped working in Microsoft's favor. Meanwhile, on October 14, 2025, Microsoft ended support for Windows 10, stranded an estimated 240 million fully functional computers that cannot run Windows 11 due to hardware requirements. Microsoft wrote specifically to force a hardware refresh. Those machines work perfectly. Microsoft decided they don't. What you're about to see is three things Microsoft never wanted in the same place: the hardware mandate trap that made your working computer obsolete by design, the surveillance feature Microsoft tried to switch on without asking you, and the quiet defection that proves millions of ordinary people already figured this out before you did. Let's start with the decision Microsoft spent 3 decades making sure you never had to make. For 3 decades, the deal was simple. You bought a computer, it came with Windows, and Windows ran until the machine died. That was the arrangement. You did not have to think about it, negotiate it, or question it. Windows 11 ended that arrangement without asking. To run Windows 11, Microsoft requires TPM 2.0, a security chip that most computers manufactured before 2016 either lack entirely or have it disabled by default. It requires a CPU from a specific approved list, one that blacklists Intel processors older than the 8th generation, and AMD chips older than the Ryzen 2000 series. It requires a minimum of 4 GB of RAM, UEFI secure boot, and starting with setup, Windows 11 requires an active internet connection and a Microsoft account just to reach the desktop for the first time, not to access special features, not to use cloud services, just to turn the thing on. Canalys estimated that approximately 240 million personal computers currently in use cannot meet those requirements. These machines power on every morning, run browsers and spreadsheets and video calls without complaint, and were declared obsolete by a bullet-pointed spec sheet. Microsoft's answer to the people who own those machines is a $30 per year extended security update fee. You can pay them annually for the right to keep receiving security patches on hardware they no longer consider worthy of free support. You own the computer. You paid for it. And Microsoft's position is that continuing to protect you from security vulnerabilities on your own machine is now a subscription service. The alternative Microsoft recommends is buying new hardware with TPM 2.0 chips, new hardware with approved processors, new hardware that happens to also ship with a Windows 11 license. Tom's Hardware reported that Microsoft confirmed these requirements are non-negotiable for all future versions of Windows. What Microsoft did not mention is that every single one of those machines runs Linux without complaint. Ubuntu does not care about your TPM version. Linux Mint runs on hardware from 2008. The machines Microsoft declared electronic waste are, in a technical sense, perfectly functional computers that simply need a different operating system, Lenovo noticed. So did a growing number of the people who own those machines. The hardware trap was supposed to push everyone toward new Windows devices. Instead, it pushed millions of people toward the door Microsoft had been hoping they would never find. That door was already open. But what happened next is what made people run toward it. In May 2024, Microsoft announced a new Windows 11 feature called Recall. The pitch was straightforward. Recall promised a photographic memory of everything you had done on your computer, taking screenshots automatically every few seconds and storing them in a searchable database. Security researchers had a different description. They called it a keylogger built into the operating system. The initial version of Recall stored everything in a plain text database. Unencrypted, accessible. Every screenshot of every password field you had ever typed into. every bank statement your browser opened, every private conversation your messaging apps displayed on screen, all of it sitting in a file structure that a basic piece of malware could walk into and pull out in seconds. The UK Information Commissioner's Office, a government privacy watchdog, formally wrote to Microsoft demanding an explanation of what safeguards existed to protect user privacy. This was not a consumer complaint. It was a regulatory agency asking a corporation to justify its product before it could cause harm. Microsoft's original plan was to enable recall by default on all Copilot Plus personal computers. Users would have to actively find the setting and turn it off. Only after a wave of public backlash, security warnings from researchers, and regulatory attention did Microsoft reverse course, make it opt-in, and delay the rollout. The default plan had become politically and legally untenable. The privacy-focused messaging app Signal built a feature specifically to block recall from capturing screenshots of its conversations on Windows. The browser Brave did the same. These companies do not build Windows workarounds lightly. They examined what Microsoft shipped and concluded that their users needed protection from the operating system itself. The feature still exists. It shipped in limited form to Copilot Plus personal computers in 2025. Your computer is supposed to be yours. Recall is a feature that records everything you do on it. Those two things are not compatible, and the backlash that forced Microsoft to delay and redesign it is proof that millions of people agreed. The question is, at what point does a company earn the benefit of the doubt on privacy? And at what point do you stop waiting to find out? While Microsoft was defending hardware requirements and walking back surveillance features, something was happening in the usage data that most people missed. According to StatCounter, Linux desktop market share in the United States reached 5.03% in June 2025. That number crossed the 5% threshold for the first time in the operating system's history on desktop machines. Globally, Linux desktop share reached 4.7% in 2025, up from 2.76% in July 2022. That is approximately 70% growth in 3 years, and the rate is accelerating. Steam reported that 3.05% of its users were running Linux in October 2025, the highest figure ever recorded. Gaming was supposed to be the last fortress that kept users from leaving Windows entirely. The fortress is cracking. Germany's state of Schleswig-Holstein migrated approximately 30,000 government systems from Microsoft Windows to Linux by April 2024, becoming the first European region to complete a full public sector migration. Denmark's Ministry of Digital Affairs announced a transition away from Microsoft platforms in 2025. These are governments looking at the long-term cost of depending on a single American software company and concluding the math no longer works. Microsoft's grip on the desktop was never built on love. It was built on the fact that there was no credible alternative in the aisle next to it. For 3 decades, if you walked into a store to buy a computer, it came with Windows. That was the entire strategy. The aisle is changing. So what does this actually mean for you? The practical barriers that kept most people on Windows are smaller than they've ever been. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, and Zorin OS are built specifically for people who have never opened a terminal window in their lives. They look like operating systems. They feel like operating systems. They run your browser, your streaming services, your documents, and your email without configuration or negotiation. You can try any of them from a USB drive before you change a single file on your computer. Download the image, write it to a USB drive, boot from it, and use it for a week. If you hate it, pull the drive out, and you are back to exactly where you started. For hardware, Lenovo ThinkPads are officially certified. Framework laptops are built to run Linux from day one. System 76 ships exclusively with Linux pre-installed. These are not hobbyist machines. What to avoid? Recall records your screen and everything on it. Forced OneDrive sync uploads your files to Microsoft servers by default. Mandatory Microsoft account setup turns your local computer login into a cloud account. Stop letting someone else's business model run on your hardware. Lenovo looked at the numbers and chose Linux. 240 million people are making the same calculation right now, whether they know it or not. Now you know. Watch this video next.